I want to introduce our first keynote speaker. We are so excited to have Chris Kubasik, the CEO of L3Harris, with us today to get us kicked off. L3Harris, let me say on a personal note, is such a great company in Fort Wayne that does so much for our community. We appreciate not just the good paying jobs that you provide, but the great community partner that L3Harris is to Fort Wayne and Northeast Indiana. Chris Kubasik is the chair and CEO of L3Harris Technologies, one of the nation's leading defense contractors and information technology services providers that employs nearly 46,000 people around the world. Chris has over 30 years of experience in the aerospace and defense industry. He was the CEO and president of L3 Technologies prior to their merger with Harris Corporation in 2019. Becoming the CEO of L3Harris in 2021. Before L3, he was the president and COO of Lockheed Martin, and before Lockheed, he enjoyed a long and successful career as a partner at Ernst & Young. L3Harris, under Chris's leadership, continues to advance the frontiers of innovation in space and communications, as increasingly challenging the traditional defense industry leaders. With that, I understand L3Harris has a video that they would like to play before we hear from Chris to address our forum.
Well, good morning, everybody, and Congressman Banks, thanks for the kind introduction. It's good to see some familiar faces from last night. We had a great time on the rooftop, a beautiful city. I come here a fair amount to visit West Cook Avenue, but I hadn't had the pleasure to be downtown, so we had a great time. And like Dr. Chang said, I also want to recognize and thank those of you that are currently serving or have served our country. For me, it's a great honor to run a company that's focused on national security, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you today. My main theme I want to focus on is the whole national defense ecosystem needs to be disrupted. I've been in this industry a long time, and I think if I look at things, the threats are increasing, as we know, each and every day. I believe the consolidation of the defense industry back in the 1990s went way too far, and I'll talk about that. And the whole ecosystem is too slow, too bureaucratic, it's lacking innovation, and it's lacking risk-taking. So let me tell you a little bit about L3Harris. We're a relatively new company, only 5 years old. We were formed in 2019 by the merger of equals between L3, which I was running in New York City. Don't ask me how we ended up there, an odd place to be a defense contractor, short train ride to the Pentagon. And Harris Company, headquartered in Melbourne, Florida, which is where we're now headquartered. Prior to the merger, these companies had combined made over 200 acquisitions over the prior 30 years. We have 46,000 employees, very patriotic workforce. I love visiting our sites. You see an American flag hanging in each and every factory, which you should take for granted, but there's a lot of companies out there you go visit, and sometimes you wonder where you are. So very patriotic, highly motivated, 20,000 scientists and engineers, 25,000 employees with security clearances, and almost 10,000 veterans work for us. We brand ourselves as the trusted disruptor for the defense industry. Here in Indiana, we have over 600 employees. 300 of those are scientists and engineers. We have well-paying jobs, well over $100,000 on average. And just last year alone, we procured over $1 billion of goods and services from 3,000 suppliers in the greater Midwest U.S., including Indiana. And the workforce is, which I'll see later this evening, highly motivated. Their volunteer hours have increased 50% a year each of the last 5 years, so we're giving back to the community. Here in Fort Wayne, just in the last few years, we've invested $125 million. One of the key responsibilities of a CEO is what to do with your cash, and we try to invest in our businesses. And $125 million here in Fort Worth, or Fort Wayne, sorry about that. We broke, that's another company. They're trying to build airplanes. We broke ground last year on a 70,000 square foot building to increase our production and engineering capability. We're renovating another 25,000 square feet, and 2 years ago, we expanded an additional 45,000 square feet. So one of the key products we have are infrared sensors from space. All right, and if you go back a few years, we were making, on average, 1 per year. 1. We are now making 1 per week. 1 per week versus 1 per year for the infrared sensors in space. I'll talk a little bit more about that. As you know, our roots run deep here in Fort Wayne. Philo Farnsworth, the inventor of TVs, started Farnsworth TV and radio in 1938. It's the namesake of the internet streaming service called Philo. Anybody actually have that? I checked it, it's $28 a month, which seems better than what I'm paying for some other streaming services. So, you know, you can watch all your old classics there. And actually, through some of those acquisitions I mentioned, which will go through, you know, AT&T, ITT, Excella Splits, actually, Philo's company is now effectively L3 Harris Spectral Solutions on West Cook Road here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So his innovations went well beyond TVs, went into aerospace defense, and clearly he was a disruptor. So I'd like to go back to 1993, a little more than 30 years ago, and I'm sure you've heard about the Last Supper. SecDef, Les Aspin called the CEOs together into the Pentagon for a dinner, and at that time there were 51 prime contractors working directly for the Department of Defense. After that dinner, which I was not in attendance, but I think it was one of those look to your left, look to your right, neither one of these guys will be here in 5 years, and they weren't, so we consolidated down to 5 major primes. Lockheed, Northrop, Raytheon, Boeing, and General Dynamics, all great companies. And by 1998, 5 years later, Lockheed and Northrop were about to merge, and the Department of Justice said no more, or we would have been down to 4. So when you think of companies like McDonnell Douglas, Rockwell, Hughes Aircraft, Westinghouse Electric, Tenneco, Fairchild, RCA, TRW, E-Systems, LTV, they're all gone. And with the threats having thought to be behind us back in the 90s and the defense budget decreasing, that's where we are today. So what are we doing at L3 Harris to disrupt the industry? We're trying to build the 6th prime to provide more competition and more alternatives to the customer. A lot of these large companies have monopoly and duopoly positions, and we're trying to be more agile, more innovative, and more affordable. But still, we're about half the size of the 5th largest defense contractor and a quarter of the size of the largest, but we are trying to disrupt and make a difference. And what does it mean to be a trusted disruptor? Simple. You can trust us because we understand the mission. We have the 10,000 veterans. We spend a lot of time with our customers, understanding the threats and trying to solve their most difficult challenges. In other words, we're not going to shut off our systems in the middle of a conflict or war to renegotiate a contract or to try to improve our commercial position like some have done. And disruption, we're willing to take risks, we're willing to be different, and we're willing to challenge the status quo. So one thing we're doing different is we're actually buying companies. A lot of companies, a lot of CEOs buy their own stock. I like to buy the stock of other companies. It's been a difficult regulatory environment, especially the past year, and everybody in Washington, everybody in the media, everybody is against further consolidation. So those are the challenges that we have as we're trying to grow the business inorganically. But I have to be honest, I want to take, since we're on a university, I thought we'd do a little tutorial here. The words consolidation, merger, and acquisition mean three different things. And members of Congress, people in DC, people throughout use them interchangeably, and there is a big difference, and that's what I want to try to explain, just ever so briefly. So a consolidation is when you have two companies with the same capabilities. So I go back in time, you look at McDonnell Douglas, you look at Boeing. They both made military and commercial aircraft. They consolidated, and there was one less company making military and commercial aircraft. And that, I think, is one of the issues that people are against. Mergers, I reflect on L3 and Harris, we had a merger of equals, no overlap. We ultimately, between the two companies, now have experience in all 5 domains, from space to air, land, sea, and cyber. There was no overlap. We saved about $650 million of cost synergies. About half went back to the Department of Defense, half went to our shareholders. And again, it helped form this great company that I have the honor of running that's trying to disrupt the industry and be the 6th prime. And then an acquisition is buying a new capability and adding to your portfolio in hopes for cost synergies, revenue synergies, or both. The most recent example was our acquisition of Aerojet Rocketdyne. Aerojet Rocketdyne we acquired about a year ago, and this was an acquisition. They're a great company, a national asset. They are one of 2 solid rocket manufacturing companies in the US. They needed investment and leadership to grow and thrive, and we were perfectly suited to take on that challenge. We've clearly scaled up the quality of the workforce, the processes. We've increased R&D and increased CapEx. Prior to the acquisition, we never competed with them. They weren't a customer of mine. I wasn't a customer of theirs. And ultimately, the Federal Trade Commission approved this acquisition, understanding the need and the benefit of us making that acquisition. So before we bought Aerojet Rocketdyne, there were 2 solid rocket manufacturers in the world, or in the US, and today there are still 2. So the only difference is one is a heck of a lot stronger and making a big difference, and they have, by all counts, the best hypersonic capabilities in the country, and had the pleasure of reuniting with Dr. Lewis, and we may be looking for some of those hypersonic tunnels in the near future, and look forward to working with Purdue in that regard. Some of the progress we've made, this company was struggling. We've been able to cut the delinquent deliveries in half. We've increased the on-time deliveries. We've invested a fair amount. We're actually 12 facilities throughout the US. We're upgrading and modernizing those with robotics and with digital engineering. And even the Department of Defense, through its Defense Production Act, has allocated over $200 million to L3 Harris to help facilitize and expand, showing the criticality of the solid rocket motor and the missile business, as you well know. Our stockpiles are depleted, and we have to pick up production. Another element of being a trusted disruptor is taking calculated risks. So in addition to buying companies, we have an exclusive strategic alliance with a venture capital company called Shield Capital out of California, focused 100% on taking commercial technologies into the defense arena. As a result of that, we actually own 2 to 8% of 40 different companies that we are pulling their technology into our solutions faster, quicker, cheaper, and allowing these companies to get through the valley of death so that they can be successful. As a finance guy at heart, you know, I'd like to get my money back. I'm pretty confident I will. Maybe we double it. But the real point is to help these companies be successful and get these new and innovative products focused on AI, focused on cyber, focused on space into our portfolio and allow them to succeed. So that has been a huge success so far. You know, Dr. Chang talked briefly about the threats, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. We all know about those, but their collaboration is increasing, and it's at a state that I don't think anyone had ever previously imagined. So in addition to those threats, we have the non-state threats of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. And this is the challenge that ultimately Senator Banks and others have to face. It's a dangerous world. We need more capabilities. We need our products quicker. They need to be more affordable. But as you well know, we have a $35 trillion debt. We have trillion-dollar deficits. And how do we balance all these competing needs with a focus on national security and dealing with the other challenges as a nation? You know, when the Ukraine war conflict broke out, we called into action. One of our key products that we're probably best known for are our software-defined radios. And literally in a matter of days, we talk about speed, we're able to assemble and deliver software-defined radios to Ukraine, tens of thousands that have made a huge difference in the conflict. The Ukrainians cannot be identified by the Russians from a location perspective. Their signals cannot be jammed, and they're able to communicate. You read, believe what I read in the press most days, you have Russian generals using their iPhones, and then they're never seen again. Communications is the key. To the extent there's threats and evolving techniques, we're able to update the software and port it into the radios remotely so that we can stay agile and ahead of the threats. Last year, we did develop some counter-UAS capability. We call it the Vampire system to shoot down adversaries' drones. Been a huge success. Again, a matter of months from when we got the contract until we were able to deploy these products. So there is a big belief, and I fully support small businesses, medium-sized businesses. They're quick, they're affordable, they're innovative. But I'm here to tell you the large companies are also innovative and can demonstrate that they can do things with speed. Let me focus on Fort Wayne and some of the risks that they're taking here or have taken in the past to explain how we get the sensors up from 1 a year to 52 a year. For many years, they were best known for their weather satellites with high-resolution capability for NOAA and NASA, identifying hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires. And our team quickly realized that with these sensors, they could also detect heat from missile launches. So taking that technology for decades, which has provided all of our weather capability as citizens to the military in the U.S., our team decided to focus on a small group of engineers, and they came forward and said, you know what, we can actually help the country with one of its greatest challenges, and that's the adversarial hypersonic missiles. How can we track those missiles? So there's a new, at the time, government agency called the SDA, the Space Development Agency. Dr. Derek Tournier wanted to go quick. I would say he's a disruptor, the SDA is a disruptor, and we were very successful back in 2020 and 2021 in getting an award from the SDA and the MDA, Missile Defense Agency, to build 5 satellites, which we launched on Valentine's Day of this year, that are in orbit, are functioning and providing great capability to the SDA, the MDA, and other government agencies relative to tracking hypersonic missiles. This would have taken 10 years and $10 billion under a slower, more traditional form of acquisition. Thanks to Derek and the SDA and our team here in Fort Wayne, we were able to get these things up in 3 years for a fraction of the cost. Since then, we've been awarded 2 additional contracts for upwards of almost $2 billion to continue to populate the constellation. So I think that's a great example of how we've been able to disrupt the market and the space industry. Of course, none of this is possible without the workforce, and we are committed, and a fair amount of our philanthropy is focused on STEM and STEM education. Clearly, that's going to be key to our success as a nation and in industry. And again, I'd like to thank Purdue for co-hosting this event with Congressman Banks. Last year, we had 25 interns here in Fort Wayne alone, over 90% accept full-time jobs. Around the nation, we had 1,000 interns, and again, about 90% come to work for us. So that's something we're quite proud of. Here locally, we have, or nationwide, you'll be happy to know, we have over 300 Purdue alumni and 600 alum from the great state of Indiana. I'm a huge sports fan, so I was happy to see that Purdue, Indiana, and Notre Dame all won this weekend. I mean, it's the first week, of course you're gonna win, but you never know. I mean, apparently a lot of people I work with went to Florida State, so good news is productivity's up, because when you're 0-2, you come to work on Saturdays. But one of my colleagues from Purdue, you know, the Purdue people, I gotta be careful, I love all these schools, but the Purdue people are pretty darn smart. I mean, you saw Dr. Chang, right? So the guy I work with, I said, hey, good game this weekend. He's like, yeah, 7 squared to nothing, great game. And that's how they talk in Purdue, I guess. So anyway, to get back to what I said, and then I'll wrap it up here. I think the DoD process can improve. And I'm hopeful when Senator Banks gets to Washington, we'll make some progress. You know, and there's been so many studies of how acquisition can improve. It's almost not worth doing another one, because we all know the answers. Starts with Congress, starts with a defense budget. It would be nice to have a defense budget by October 1 at the beginning of a fiscal year. And as I've said once on, I don't remember saying it, but I played it back. Apparently I actually did say it on CNBC. I was thinking it and I didn't know it came out. But I did say something exactly like, I'm pretty sure China and Russia don't have continuing resolutions. And I got a lot of emails and text on that one. Anyway, I do believe it. I'm pretty sure China and Russia don't have continuing resolutions, so hopefully we'll get there. As I said, the whole ecosystem needs to be on a wartime footing, Congress, the DoD, and the industry, and I think it's time to return to the office. I'm not a big fan of hybrid, I'm not a big fan of remote. You know, we have to have the mindset, we're on a wartime footing, it's time to get back to the office. People did it 5 years ago. I'm not sure why all of a sudden 30, 40, 50% of the workforce thinks they can work hybrid and or remote. I don't think there's the teamwork, the collaboration, the innovation, or the productivity. Nobody will convince me otherwise. We're bringing all of our workers back, no more hybrid in 2 weeks. So we'll see how that plays out. I think as we move forward as a defense industry, there's way too much regulatory burdens, whether you're traditional, non-traditional, commercial, or otherwise. We have to get rid of the processes that are so burdensome to make a simple acquisition. I get RFPs that are literally thousands of pages, just a request for a proposal. And then we have to counter with 20,000-page proposals. And then you wait 90 days for someone to make a decision. And then you protest it. And then 100 days later, the GAO agrees, disagrees. It's crazy. We have to pick up the process and go a lot quicker in my mind. There are the ability to designate products as commercial, and you just treat the defense industry like you do the commercial industry. Everybody in the Pentagon loves commercial companies. My vision would be the entire defense industrial base is commercial in 5 to 10 years. You put out a proposal, a couple people bid on a solid rocket motor, pick the lowest price and move on. Who cares how the heck we are allocating our 2014 pension cost and have a bunch of DCA and DCM auditors challenge it. They're $52,000 a pop. How many do you want? Who the hell cares? How I allocate cost, disclosure statements, FAR, and I don't need hundreds and thousands of auditors double checking. I'm willing to sell them for 52, the other guy's 54. Buy them from me, split the buy, let's rock and roll. I could be making 2%, I could be making 20%. Do you need these products or not? I think that's the way to go. And then software. I mean, the industry doesn't know how to solve software. and the DoD doesn't know how to buy software. So we got to figure this out. You can't get cost and pricing data on software, you know? It's crazy. So I think we all know these things. You know, we're going to try to support all and any initiatives to go quicker and to make this a great country. I know we're the greatest country on the earth. I know we can fix these problems. I know when Senator Banks, the day after the election, is headed to DC, things are going to change for the better. So it's been a true honor and pleasure to be with you today and share some thoughts, and look forward to the rest of the day. Thank you so much.